dangerous sodium levels, undisclosed fillers, and recurring sanitation failures, all exposed inside some of America's most trusted frozen meat pie brands. That golden crust sitting in your freezer right now might be hiding mechanically separated poultry, chemical preservatives linked to cancer, and sodium loads high enough to send your blood pressure into crisis overnight. But crack the wrong pie open, and what you are really eating is processed paste, bone fragments, and industrial thickeners dressed up as a home-style meal. If this has been your go-to comfort food for 10, 20, 30 years, everything we found has been building up in your body that entire time. Today, we are counting down 11 meat pie brands that failed every check we ran. Number 1 is a name almost every American household has trusted for generations, and it is the most dangerous brand on this list. Coming in at number 11, Banquet pot pies. The packaging promises comfort, homestyle, hearty. The price sits under $2, and for anyone stretching a fixed income, that matters. But here is what the front of that box will never tell you. A single Banquet chicken pot pie contains over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. That is nearly half the daily recommended limit in one sitting. For anyone managing high blood pressure or families feeding this to teenagers after practice, that is not dinner. That is a health risk disguised as a bargain. The crust is made with partially hydrogenated oils, a known source of trans fats that the American Heart Association has directly linked to elevated LDL cholesterol and heart disease. The FDA moved to ban artificial trans fats from the food supply, yet formulations like this still slip through. Now crack one open. Look at the filling. It is a pale, grayish slurry with tiny flecks of chicken suspended in thick, starchy paste. The texture is closer to wallpaper adhesive than gravy. The smell is faintly metallic, almost chemical. This is not your grandmother's recipe. This is a lab-engineered product built to hit a price point. And there is history here. Banquet pot pies were linked to a massive salmonella outbreak that sickened hundreds of consumers across multiple states. The CDC documented at least 401 confirmed cases tied to the contamination. The recall made national headlines. The product returned to shelves with minimal changes. Comfort on the label. Salmonella in the filling. For seniors watching their heart health, or anyone on ACE inhibitors, the combination of sky-high sodium, trans fat exposure, bargain-grade protein, and a documented contamination history makes Banquet one of the first pies you should reconsider. They promised a warm meal. They delivered a sodium bomb in a questionable crust. If the cheapest pie on the shelf hides all of this, surely spending more gets you something safer. Not even close. At number 10, Marie Callender's pot pies. This brand positions itself a full tier above the budget options. The box says made from scratch. It says home-style recipe. You would swear you are getting something your mother might have baked. Look closer. A single Marie Callender's chicken pot pie can contain over 1,800 milligrams of sodium. That is more than many adults should consume in an entire day. If you are taking blood pressure medication, eating this pie could directly undermine the work your prescription is doing. It is like swallowing your pill and then swallowing the problem right behind it. The ingredient list stretches longer than a pharmacy receipt. Modified food starch, sodium phosphates, autolyzed yeast extract, which is essentially a hidden form of MSG, soy protein isolate, and a parade of preservatives no home kitchen would stock. The label says home style. The ingredient panel says factory floor. Break the crust open. Underneath, the filling has a thick, gelatinous consistency. The vegetables are mushy, almost gray, with no detectable flavor. The chicken pieces are small, spongy, and eerily uniform. The signature texture of mechanically separated reformed poultry. And here is what most people overlook. Marie Callender's pies are enormous. The calorie count on a single pie can exceed 1,000 calories. For seniors managing diabetes alongside daily medication, or families assuming one pie equals one sensible dinner, this is a meal that works against every health goal on the table. Made from scratch, 1,000 calories, 1,800 milligrams of sodium. They market warmth and tradition. What they sell is excess sodium, excess calories, excess processed ingredients at a premium price designed to make you believe you are paying for quality. You are not. That was a premium brand. The next one built its reputation over decades, and what they put inside that trusted packaging is even harder to forgive. Number 9. Swanson pot pies, one of the oldest names in frozen meals. For many Americans over 50, this brand carries decades of loyalty. That is exactly what makes this one sting. Swanson pot pies are priced as an affordable comfort option, but the sodium levels hover around 1,100 milligrams per pie. The National Kidney Foundation estimates that over 37 million Americans have chronic kidney disease, and a disproportionate number are over 60. For anyone in that group or families unaware of early-stage kidney decline, this level of sodium puts genuine strain on organs already working overtime. The protein content is low relative to the serving size. You are getting mostly crust, gravy filler, and starch. The chicken is minimal, and when you find it, it has a rubbery, over-processed bite that snaps apart like damp cardboard. The gravy has an artificial sheen, almost glossy, which comes from thickeners and stabilizers rather than actual stock. Swanson also uses artificial colors and flavors in several formulations. These are additives that multiple European countries have restricted or required warning labels on, yet they sit quietly in American freezers marketed to the people most vulnerable to their cumulative effects. The crust has a dry, crumbly texture with a slightly stale, almost cardboard-like taste. There is none of the buttery flakiness you would expect from a real pie. It crumbles apart and pastes itself to the roof of your mouth. You trusted the name. The name did not earn it. Decades of trust. 1,100 milligrams of sodium. See the pattern forming? Budget brands cut corners on ingredients. Legacy brands cut corners on honesty. So what happens when a brand nobody has even heard of enters the picture? That is where things get genuinely alarming. This next one might surprise you. Number 8. Wilshire Peak Meat Pies, a lesser-known brand that has quietly gained shelf space in discount grocery chains and dollar stores across the country. Their meat pies list the word meat on the label without specifying cut or quality. Check the fine print and you find mechanically separated chicken and beef byproducts. Those are industry terms for the scraps, the parts left over after every desirable piece has been removed. A USDA study found that mechanically separated poultry can contain bone fragments, connective tissue, and marrow. These are not just low quality. They are parts most consumers would refuse if they could see them before they were ground into paste. The sodium content per pie sits near 1,300 milligrams. The preservatives include BHA and BHT, both classified as possible carcinogens by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. Cut one open. The filling is dark, paste-like, and has a faint sour smell that hits you before the pie is fully unwrapped. The texture is gritty, almost like wet sand mixed into rendered fat. The crust is thin, greasy, and nearly translucent where the filling seeps through. For seniors on blood thinners like warfarin or anyone managing vitamin K fluctuations, certain preservatives and inconsistent meat processing in products like these can interfere with medication dosing. That is not a minor inconvenience. That is a medical risk sitting in a dollar store freezer. Bone fragments in the filling, carcinogens in the preservatives. Why do the cheapest meat pies always end up in the stores where the most budget-conscious shoppers have no other options? Think about that. But I know what some of you are thinking. Surely the biggest retailer in America does better than a dollar store brand. Wait until you see what Walmart is selling. Number 7. Great Value Pot Pies, Walmart's store brand. One of the most purchased pot pies in America. The price, often under $2, makes it nearly impossible to pass up for anyone stretching a grocery budget. But that low price comes with a cost your body pays later. Great Value Pot Pies contain a laundry list of bulk agents: soy protein concentrate, modified cornstarch, dextrose, and sodium phosphates. These are filler ingredients designed to make a tiny amount of actual meat feel like more. It is food engineering masquerading as food. The sodium clocks in around 1,050 milligrams. The saturated fat content is high, and the actual meat content, if you drain off the gravy and starch, is shockingly small. You are mostly eating flavored paste in a shell. There have been multiple consumer complaints about foreign objects found in Great Value pot pies: plastic fragments, hair, and in one reported case, a piece of rubber. While these are isolated incidents, they reveal quality control gaps in a supply chain built for volume, not safety. Microwave one, and the smell is distinctly artificial, a chemical-adjacent aroma that does not resemble anything from a real kitchen. The filling is gummy and leaves a slick film across the roof of your mouth that lingers long after the last bite. A wholesome meal. That is what the label promises. Rubber in the filling. That is what inspectors found. For seniors watching cholesterol levels or parents feeding kids on a tight budget, the gap between what this label promises and what the product delivers is not just misleading. It is a betrayal of every shopper who trusted America's largest retailer to do the bare minimum. Is it not strange that Walmart can sell millions of these pies but cannot seem to keep foreign objects out of them? Now, here is where the portions get dangerous. The next brand turned oversized servings into a selling point. What they did not advertise was the damage. Here is where it gets personal. Number 6. Claim jumper pot pies. Born from a restaurant chain famous for oversized portions, their frozen pies carry that same philosophy. Big size, big promises, bigger problems. One Claim Jumper chicken pot pie can top 1,900 milligrams of sodium, nearly the entire daily recommended limit packed into a single pie. For anyone managing congestive heart failure or families with a history of cardiovascular disease, this level of sodium can contribute to fluid retention, swelling, shortness of breath, and emergency room visits. The ingredient list includes autolyzed yeast extract, sodium caseinate, and soybean oil. These are cheap industrial components designed to simulate rich, creamy flavor without using quality ingredients. The creamy sauce listed on the box is not cream. It is water, oil, and chemical thickeners blended to mimic what real cooking produces. The pie itself is heavy, nearly a pound. Cut into it and the filling oozes out thick and slow with a yellowish tint that does not look natural under any kitchen light. The chicken pieces are pale and perfectly uniform, a dead giveaway of processed, reformed poultry that was never carved from any recognizable cut. 1,900 milligrams. One pie, one sitting. They built their brand on restaurant-quality indulgence. What they deliver is a sodium-saturated, calorie-dense product engineered for shelf appeal, not for the person eating it. A meal that heavy, that loaded, sitting like concrete in your stomach. And the aftertaste, a salty, greasy film that coats your tongue for hours. That is not comfort food. That is a cardiovascular event waiting for a trigger. If this helps you stay safer at the store, hit subscribe. It is free, and it means you will never miss these warnings. You just saw what the big portion brands are hiding. So surely a corporate giant with billions in resources produces something cleaner. Let us find out. Number 5 is one most people trust without question. Stouffer's pot pies, owned by Nestlé, one of the largest food corporations on the planet. Their marketing budget alone could fund a small country. Their frozen pot pies are positioned as premium. Simple recipes. Real ingredients. That is the promise printed on every box. Let us test it. Sodium per serving ranges from 900 to 1,200 milligrams depending on the variety. The ingredient panel lists enriched flour, palm oil, and a string of emulsifiers and stabilizers. Simple, this is not. Palm oil deserves its own spotlight. It is high in saturated fat, and the World Health Organization has flagged its overconsumption as a cardiovascular concern. Yet, it is a primary fat source in these pies because it is cheap and extends shelf life. Your arteries pay for their profit margin. The filling has a pasty consistency that clings to the spoon. The vegetables, usually peas and carrots, are soft to the point of disintegration, with almost no detectable flavor. The chicken has that processed, spongy uniformity again. You will not find a single piece that looks like it was carved from an actual bird. And here is the bigger picture. Nestlé has faced multiple lawsuits and investigations related to misleading labeling across their product lines. When a corporation this large prints simple recipe on the box, it is worth asking, simple for whom? For you or for their bottom line? Simple recipe. Palm oil, emulsifiers, and reformed poultry. For seniors managing cholesterol alongside daily statins, or anyone who chose this brand believing premium meant safer, Stouffer's is proof that a bigger marketing budget does not mean better ingredients. It just means a louder lie. Now I know some of this is unsettling. But there is a simple method to protect yourself every single time you shop for frozen pies. We are going to break it down step by step, but that comes at the very end of this video. Because what is coming next is worse. The next brand trades on a name built around fresh rotisserie chicken. What they actually put inside their frozen pies is a different story entirely. Number 4. Boston Market Pot Pies. Golden skin, real sides, the aroma of an actual kitchen. You would expect their pot pies to deliver real, recognizable poultry. Expect less. The sodium in a Boston Market pot pie can exceed 1,500 milligrams. The calorie count pushes past 800 in some varieties, and buried in the ingredient list sits sodium tripolyphosphate, a chemical used to retain water in processed meat. It plumps the chicken with moisture so you pay meat prices for water weight. The crust is thick and doughy on the bottom, almost undercooked in texture. The top crust has a manufactured golden sheen that comes from added coloring, not from actual browning in an actual oven. The filling is dense and aggressively salty. You can feel the sodium tingle across your lips after 2 bites, a sharp, almost stinging sensation that real home cooking never produces. For seniors on potassium-sparing diuretics or anyone managing electrolyte balance, the sodium-to-potassium ratio in this product is dangerously skewed. It could trigger muscle weakness, irregular heartbeat, or worse. Rotisserie reputation. Water-injected reality. They trade entirely on the Boston market name. They rely on the memory of carved chicken and warm sides served on real plates. But this frozen pie shares almost nothing with that experience. It is a processed product wearing a familiar mask, and the mask is the only reason it sells. We are getting close to number 1 now. And what we found there was genuinely disturbing. But I also promised you a way to protect yourself. A clear, simple approach to choosing safe meat pies without second-guessing every label. That is coming at the very end. Do not leave before you hear it. This next brand is one of the cheapest frozen options in America. And there is a very specific reason it costs so little. Number 3. Totino's, owned by General Mills. Their products sit at the absolute bottom of the frozen aisle price range. And there is a reason for that. The sodium in a Totino's pot pie can reach 1,200 milligrams. But the real concern here is ingredient quality. Their meat fillings rely heavily on mechanically separated chicken, soy flour, and a cocktail of artificial flavors engineered to trick your palate into believing there is real poultry inside. The meat content is stretched so thin it barely qualifies. The crust is paper-thin, oily, and carries an almost chemical aftertaste that lingers on your tongue minutes after you finish eating. Microwave one and watch what happens. The edges turn soggy. The center stays lukewarm. That uneven heating is a textbook breeding ground for bacteria. USDA guidelines require that frozen pot pies reach an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit to be safe. But consumer surveys reveal that a significant percentage of older adults do not use food thermometers at home. They eat these pies undercooked without realizing it. And the risk of foodborne illness, salmonella, listeria, clostridium, spikes dramatically. CDC data confirms that adults over 65 account for a disproportionate share of foodborne illness, hospitalizations, and deaths in the United States. For seniors with weakened immune systems or anyone recovering from surgery or chemotherapy, one undercooked pot pie could mean hospitalization. That is not an exaggeration. That is a documented public health reality. The label says party. The contents, they gamble. Drop a comment if Totino's is sitting in your freezer right now. Let us see how many of us have been eating this without knowing. A lot of people switched to the next brand on this list thinking bulk buying meant better quality. Thinking the Costco name guaranteed something the discount brands could not. They were wrong. Number 2. Kirkland Signature Chicken Pot Pies from Costco. This one surprised us. Costco's store brand has a fiercely loyal following. Members trust it implicitly. They buy in bulk. They assume the Costco name means rigorous quality control. When it comes to their pot pies, that assumption falls apart. A single Kirkland pot pie serving can deliver well over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. But the packaging is deceptive because the pie is designed for multiple servings. Many people, especially someone eating alone, consume the whole thing in one sitting. Do that, and you are looking at a staggering sodium load that could exceed an entire day's recommended intake before dinner is over. The ingredient list includes butter flavor derived from natural and artificial sources, modified food starch, and sodium phosphate. The chicken, while marginally better than some on this list, still contains added solutions for moisture retention. You are still paying for water pretending to be meat. The crust is heavy and dense. It sits in your stomach like wet cement. The gravy is thick and leaves a slick coating on your tongue, that greasy film that tells you the oil content is far higher than it needs to be. Bulk packaging, zero portion control. And here is where it gets dangerous for specific households. Costco pies come only in large formats. There are no individual portions. For anyone living alone or seniors managing portion sizes alongside daily medication, you are almost guaranteed to overeat in one sitting or store leftovers improperly. increasing the risk of bacterial growth. Do you think grocery stores design their packaging for your health or for their bottom line? What is the worst frozen pie you have ever cracked open? Drop it below. I want to see how many of these brands show up in the comments. And now, number 1. The brand that made us stop and rethink everything. A name so trusted, so embedded in American kitchens, that what we found feels less like a product failure and more like a personal betrayal. Number 1. Mrs. Smith's and their affiliated frozen pie lines. This brand has been a household name for generations. It practically defined American frozen pie. Your parents served it. Their parents trusted it. The name alone carries an almost sacred level of familiarity. And that is exactly what makes this one devastating. Mrs. Smith's frozen meat pies have faced scrutiny over ingredient sourcing that contradicts their wholesome image. The fillings contain mechanically separated poultry, hydrolyzed soy protein, and a range of sodium-based preservatives pushing the content well over 1,100 milligrams per serving. But here is what genuinely shook us. Internal quality audits from affiliated production facilities revealed recurring sanitation issues, including temperature control failures during storage and transport. When frozen meat products are not kept at consistent temperatures, the risk of pathogen growth skyrockets. We are talking about Listeria monocytogenes, a bacterium that is particularly lethal for adults over 65 and anyone with a compromised immune system. The CDC estimates that Listeria causes roughly 1,600 infections and 260 deaths annually in the United States. The elderly are the single most vulnerable population. Crack open one of their pies. The filling has a grayish-brown color with a faintly sour, almost metallic scent that rises the moment you break the crust. The meat is indistinguishable. You cannot identify the cut. You cannot confirm it is even a single type of protein. The gravy separates, watery in some bites and clumpy in others, a clear sign of inconsistent processing. The crust is dry, crumbly, and coated in a thin layer of grease that stains the baking sheet. Made with care. Family recipe. Quality you can trust. Those words are printed on the label of a product with documented sanitation failures and Listeria risk in its supply chain. That is the betrayal. That is why it is number 1. Not because of one single ingredient or one sodium count, but because it is the brand that earned the most trust and then quietly, year after year, failed to live up to it. 11 brands, 11 failures. But I promised you 2 that actually passed every check. Here they are. The first safe option is Willow Tree Chicken Pot Pie. Willow Tree uses real whole muscle chicken. No mechanically separated meat. No artificial preservatives. No hidden MSG. The sodium content is among the lowest in the entire frozen pot pie category, sitting well below the 600 milligram threshold that every single brand on our avoid list blew past without hesitation. The ingredient list is short enough to read in one breath. Chicken, vegetables, cream, flour, butter. That is it. No sodium phosphates. No autolyzed yeast extract. No hydrolyzed anything. Open the box and the difference hits you immediately. The filling smells like actual food. Roasted chicken and real vegetables. Not that metallic chemical-adjacent aroma you get from the brands we just exposed. The chicken pieces are irregular, different shapes, different sizes, because they were carved from real cuts, not extruded through a machine. The gravy has a natural thickness to it, not glossy or gelatinous, just the way homemade gravy looks when it cools slightly in the pan. The crust is flaky and golden from actual butter, not from palm oil and artificial coloring agents pretending to be butter. For seniors watching blood pressure alongside daily medication, or anyone managing kidney health on a restricted sodium diet, Willow Tree is one of the very few frozen pot pies that does not actively work against your body while claiming to feed it. It costs a few dollars more than the bargain brands. But the difference is not just price. The difference is that every ingredient on this label is something you would actually recognize in your own kitchen. The second safe option is Blake's All-Natural Chicken Pot Pie. Blake's uses organic chicken and real vegetables with a clean ingredient panel that contains no artificial flavors, no artificial preservatives, and no trans fats. The sodium sits well below the levels found in every single brand on our avoid list, and the serving sizes are honest. What the label says is what you actually eat. No hidden math, no deceptive portion splitting. They use real butter in their crust, and you can taste the difference. It is flaky, slightly golden, with a richness that comes from actual dairy fat, not from soybean oil and chemical emulsifiers engineered in a lab. The filling looks and smells like food. Pieces of chicken that are identifiable as chicken. Vegetables with color and texture that did not come from a rehydrated powder. Gravy that tastes like it was made in a pot, not assembled in a vat. Blake's is transparent about their sourcing. They list where their ingredients come from. They submit to third-party testing. They do not hide behind marketing language designed to confuse. For seniors managing cholesterol alongside heart medication, or families looking for a frozen option that does not betray their trust, Blake's delivers exactly what the 11 brands on our avoid list only promised. A real meal made with real ingredients and nothing to hide. It costs more than the $2 pies. But after everything you have seen today, the real question is whether those $2 pies were ever worth the price your body paid. Now, here is the part I told you was coming. When you are shopping for frozen meat pies, there are 3 things you need to check every single time. First, flip the box over. Ignore the front entirely. The front is marketing. Find the nutrition facts panel and look at the sodium line. If it is over 600 milligrams per serving, put it back. Your heart and your kidneys will thank you. Second, read the ingredient list. If you see the words mechanically separated, hydrolyzed protein, autolyzed yeast extract, or sodium phosphate, that is your signal to walk away. Those are cheap filler ingredients that processed food companies use to cut costs. You deserve better than that. Third, check the serving size. Many of these brands list a serving as half a pie or even a third. Nobody eats a third of a pot pie. Multiply the sodium and calorie numbers by how much you will actually eat. That real number is what your body has to deal with. 3 steps: flip, read, and check. Do that every time, and you will avoid every brand on this list without needing to memorize a single name. 11 brands exposed, 2 that earned your trust. Subscribe now, and if you are watching on TV, tap your remote so you never get blindsided again.